to illegal immigrants, then, I mean, it's absolutely fascinating for me that so-called, tikkun olam Jews, God, spare us all from these tikkun olam Jews. These tikkun olam Jews, the rural white poor in this country, the largest single group, they despise. They despise them. They have no interest in them. They no longer particularly like blacks because their unbelievable self-loathing love was not requited, so they don't like blacks anymore. Right now, they think that they can patronize Hispanics. I've got news for them. It ain't going to be for long. But I wish they'd stop for a minute and think, you're supporting this particular group as someone else is paying the price. Now, you're not. You're probably college educated, and you probably have a decent job, and if not, mommy or daddy is going to take care of you. But what about folks who have to go out there and work for a living and don't have any expectations of inherited wealth, and just have to make things work from paycheck to paycheck, whether it's twice a week or twice monthly or once monthly? Those people are being slaughtered, and those people are your countrymen. And again, to me, that matters a lot. For them, I don't think it matters at all. It doesn't matter at all. What they always are soliciting is the approval of the other, of the foreign. They see themselves as borderless humanists. And by the way, that is the last group of people in the world that I would trust to do anything. Why is it that their passion always increases in direct proportion to the distance between themselves and where the tragedy is taking place? I mean, if I were to fall down in the street and smash my head, they would walk over me. I know it. It's the kind of Jews who can't stand and be loyal to other Jews. They have to be they've got to be more supportive of Palestinians than anyone else, or more understanding of Muslim grievance. I mean, how is a Muslim grievance? They're crazy because they're Muslims. It's not for any other reason. They've always been crazy. But it's really this kind of person, and Jews are disproportionately involved in every kind of insanity. But there are plenty of people, obviously, who are not Jewish, who are just as involved in this, and some of them for selfish reasons. They're multinational corporation types, and they want to make money wherever they can make it. And they have no particular loyalty to this country. I mean, 50 years ago, you could have said what's good for GM is good for America. You certainly can't say that now. Certainly, the foundation culture has very much encouraged this kind of multicultural sort of disdain for the notion of a dominant culture. I think it feeds into that. It's no surprise, for example, that virtually every organization in the National Immigration Forum, including the forum itself, is a creature of the Ford Foundation, an elitist, small, multi-zillion-dollar, left-oriented foundation. But I do, as I said, I think you're quite right about the issue of race. I think that plays out tremendously. But I do think this idea of American and post-American is also really very fundamental. Again, if you don't feel ashamed of this country, on the other hand, if you love it, if you care about its welfare, again, and I do not see that as precluding having a social conscience that reaches out well beyond. But again, I do think that you begin, that charity does begin at home. That a sense of justice begins with those issues of justice and of right and of law that lie right before you. And we make our moral lives here every day, not in some faraway place in some abstraction. This is where we make our moral lives, and the people around us, our fellow citizens, are the people I think to whom we owe our first moral obligation.
What, if anything, surprised you in this Gideon Southern Poverty Law Center thing, where they said that synagogues, the Jewish newspapers shouldn't publish you, etc. And then you've spoken to a lot of people about this. I'm sure it's been written about. What out of this has surprised you, if anything?
Well, actually, Luke, a lot of things have surprised me, and have been extraordinarily painful and disappointing. For one thing, I think it reveals something really deplorable in the heart of the Jewish establishment, that there's a kind of sickness there, that someone could come out and conduct a surreptitious poison pen campaign based on lies supplied by the Southern Poverty Law Center, a whole tapestry woven together of quarter truths and happenstance and all the rest, to come up and describe me as a white supremacist. I mean, it's so preposterous that, I mean, no words can convey it, but where was David Harris of the American Jewish Committee, where I worked for 8 years? Why didn't he stand up and say, that's outrageous? I've known this man. I mean, this guy has stood against bias and bigotry and racism all of his life. You know, where were the voices of outrage in the Jewish community? They've gone along like sheep. I mean, they've taken this, and Hadassah cut off the speaking engagement. You know, now apparently, you know, my guess is that I'll never get invited I'll never be allowed to go there, or if I do go, it will only be to debate some idiot from the local JCRC, which, yeah, you know, I'll do that, and I'll make fools of them, but, I mean, it's really burdensome. But, you know, for me, it was tremendous disappointment that, in fact, the Jewish press, you know, there are hundreds of Jewish newspapers in this country, but almost none of them reacted. I mean, if I were an editor and I got a letter, an email telling me who I could publish and who I couldn't publish, I would tell the person to go fuck himself. I mean, I had about 4 or 5 people get in touch with me, editors. And one thing you'll enjoy, by the way, this is very funny. This wonderful guy named Seth Mandel, who publishes 2 papers in Jersey, got in touch with me. He was by far the best, wonderfully, also, by the way, orthodox and conservative, but just a wonderful guy, incredibly bright and terrific. Anyway, the funny part is he turns out to be a relative. His grandmother and my mother are first cousins. So I remember calling him one day and saying, Luke, I said, I'm sorry, Seth? I said, hey, cuz. Anyway, that was kind of nifty, so now I found family. But, yeah, I was just tremendously disappointed by the fact that nobody in the establishment who matters stood up and said, in the Jewish community, we don't indulge in this kind of character assassination and this kind of McCarthyism. You know, you want to debate ideas, go out and debate them. Now, Gideon Aronoff can't debate an idea because he can't write a sentence and he can't speak a sentence. I mean, he's hopeless. He's an idiot. I mean, I've made mincemeat of him before congressional committees on more than one occasion, and I've made mincemeat of his arguments on other occasions. I mean, he's a horse's ass. And I'm sure he dislikes me intensely. But, you know, you don't do what he did. What he did is, you know, I only now understand why bearing false witness against one's neighbor belongs in the Ten Commandments, and how important it is, and how ugly and horrendous it is when one is victimized by false witness. And that no one spoke out, no one spoke out, is a source of enormous pain and anger on my part. I should tell you, I mean, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. I made an appointment with the #1 apparatchik in the Jewish world, who knows me quite well, Malcolm Hoenlein, you know, who's executive director of the Conference of, you know, the most self-important single name-sounding organization in the world, you know,
yes.
The Conference of Presidents of major American Jewish organizations. By the way, one thing that happens when you work in Jewish organizations is just, you know, just parens, is it really destroys your language. So after working at the American Jewish Committee for a few years, I realized that I couldn't describe anything that I was doing or planning if there was a noun in it without the adjective major in front of it. So I realized that my English started improving after I left. But anyway, he's, you know, I had a nice relationship with him. I mean, you know, he's a decent person. he's also politically, I think, pretty conservative.